Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Oh, I see. You used me as an excuse, Carl said. What excuse? It's just that he isn't worried because I'm safe around you. Nicole rolled her eyes. Well, he's going to be disappointed this time. Carl sighed. Why are you being such a Debbie Downer? This has not ended. We can turn the tables as long as we can capture Kara's command post. Nicole looked at him with confidence. Easier said than done. You've seen how our men ended up after that last attempt. It's just too tall of an order for us, Carl said with a look of defeat. This is not the Carl I know. What did you go through that turned you into someone like this? Where did the courageous and optimistic Carl go? Nicole looked at him, her eyes brimming with passion and fury. It's not an issue of confidence. It's just that we've been cornered like prey. We don't have enough equipment or weapons. I'm just worried that... Carl stopped mid-sentence. Don't lose hope. You're not fighting alone. I'm here with you. We've overcome many predicaments, and we will overcome this one too. There's nothing we can't do. Nicole encouraged with a look of affirmation. He looked at Nicole's assuring gaze and the passion in his eyes lit up. She's right. She's here with me too. We've gone through so many battles, so this is nothing. Nothing compared to what we've faced in the past. It's nice to have you here, Nicole. It feels like we're in the past completing missions once again. Carl smiled at Nicole. Yeah, think about how we used to overcome our difficulties and complete our missions. We can do it this time too. She said. Come on, let's head back to study the map. Nicole took the last sip of her coffee and made her way back to the meeting room. Carl and Nicole then went on to discover ways to deal with the Raven's command post throughout the entire afternoon. When the sky had darkened, Carl brought 2 cups of instant noodles over, whereupon they continued coming up with a plan while eating. The next day, after the sun had risen to brighten the day, Carl was asleep on the table while Nicole was still coming up with a plan to capture the post. It's finally done. Nicole exclaimed in joy, forgetting that Carl had fallen asleep next to her. Her loud voice immediately woke Carl up, and he stared at her in a daze. What happened? Did Kara attack us? No, Carl. I found a way to resolve the problem that we were facing last night. Nicole walked over and told him happily. For real? Carl exclaimed, shocked and excited. Yes. Come have a look. Nicole pointed at the map and proceeded to present her idea to him. Carl listened to her as his eyes widened. He looked at Nicole and said, This is a brilliant idea. You're a genius, Nicole. But wait. You've been up for the whole night, haven't you? Carl felt bad for Nicole. He was a little too exhausted last night and could only recall looking at Nicole as she studied the map intently before he fell asleep. I'm fine. I'll just make up for my sleep later, Nicole said, looking knackered. Just get some sleep now and leave the rest to me, he replied. I'm really fine. But as she was about to complete her sentence, Carl interrupted her. No, don't work on this anymore. Just go to sleep. You're my no, you're my angel. Carl smiled as he pushed Nicole out of the meeting room. All right. I'll go to sleep, okay? But please, look into it carefully, since you're more familiar with this place than I am. There can't be any loopholes, so we must succeed this time. Nicole turned to remind him. Sure, don't worry about it. I'll be extra attentive. I'll still need you to double-check it in the end, so please get some rest. Carl just wanted Nicole to have some sleep. Okay, I'll go catch some rest. Just come and find me if you need me, she said. Yup, got it. Carl then returned to the meeting room. In truth, he did not expect Nicole to come up with a plan overnight. With that said, he proceeded to study the geography of the place as he thought, Nicole really did provide me with massive aid for this plan. I've got to better it as much as I can, so that the chances of us failing again are close to none. Then, night came. 2 squads went on to sneak out of the tiny door of their base, fully geared and armed. They were headed toward the riverside, and when they got there, Nicole led them across the river, followed by Carl. In the dead of night, and under the cover of darkness, both Nicole and Carl brought the two teams to the command post nearby. "Carl, seen anything on your end?" she asked. "I'm going to assess the enemy's formation." Carl took his binoculars out and stood at the best position he could find as he poked his head out carefully, attempting to get a good look on their positioning. But after looking at it for a bit, his face turned sour. "Nicole, they have changed their formations. No one is out there." Nicole scoffed. "Seems like I was right. Plan B, let's go." Carl could not help but smile. "Thank God for your plan B." "Got it, I'll send the troops in." In a dark room in the command post, stood a man with a gun in his right hand, while on the other were two walnuts which he fiddled with. He was looking out of the window with a cold expression on his face. Soon, another man barged into the room and knelt over. "Sir, our targets have taken the bait." The man stopped fiddling with the walnuts and chuckled. "They're here? What are we waiting for then? This time, don't let them get away." Smack. Accompanying the man's cold laughter was the crushing of the walnuts, their bits scattering on the floor. His subordinate, who was shocked, quickly turned around and left. The man stood up and walked out of the room. He then took his pair of binoculars out and eyed the exterior of the command post from above, gazing at the ants who were sneaking in. "Judging by the number of people here, it seems that they have sent all of their troops," he thought. After all, the man had been luring them in for several days. They do not have many resources, so this must be their final battle. Novel drama. Prepare yourselves. We'll get them all this time. Every single one of them. The man belted out in a chilling fit of laughter as the lurid scar ran down the corner of his eye. "Yes, sir." His men nodded and got ready for battle. As swift as they could be, Nicole and Carl's army began the siege. The man immediately shouted, "Fire!" The people in the area immediately knew that they had been tricked, after which the team leader shouted, "Find cover." All of them dispersed at once, resulting in an uncoordinated mess as the fight devolved into chaos. The man was absolutely delighted at the sight of it. "Doesn't seem like we had to waste much ammo to get these people here today." Both sides engaged in a frenzied shootout, littering the ground with bullet cases and the air with the sound of booming gunfire. And finally, after what seemed to be forever, one of the parties ceased attacking. The man smiled with delight. "Ha, they probably ran out of ammo." Unfortunately, he was right. Carl's men did indeed run out of ammo. Then, he quickly waved his arm and exclaimed, "Halt! Capture those who are still alive. Don't waste your ammo. These people aren't worth it." "Yes, sir." His men stopped firing and ran out of the command post, rushing toward the bunkers to quickly surround it. Carl's men, who here hiding behind their covers, were all pale as sheet. They had already thrown their guns on the ground and lifted their hands in surrender. "Don't shoot. We're out of ammo." One of the men surrendered with his trembling arms raised, trying to explain himself as he was afraid that he would get a bullet to the head. Watching as his enemies were being surrounded, the Raven commander walked out from the dark, smug and satisfied. "Sir, we've rounded up a total of 17 people," one of his men said. Though the commander had no clue as to how many people were on Carl's team, he knew that they could not halt their attack as long as they had backup. Besides, some of the one present were Zane's elite mercenaries. Nonetheless, he was brimming with joy at the sight of these highly trained men raising their arms in defeat. "I wasn't expecting the legendary mercenaries working for Zane to be this weak. You were all probably hiding in your base, huh? You bunch of wimps," he barked. Jason looked upset, and even though he had also raised his hands in defeat, his eyes were brimming with hatred. But then, a voice echoed in his ear. "Calm down." The gentle lady sounded confident, causing him to simmer down at once. "You're screwed because you chose to follow the wrong person." The commander took his pistol and pointed the muzzle at Jason's head. Jason's eyes narrowed in an instant. Even if Carl had gotten him to act like he was surrendering, he had pride as a mercenary. He did not fear death. Jason glared at the man and asked, "You're Kara, right?" The man was furious when he saw Jason's gaze. "Who are you to ask who I am? How dare you glare at me? Why don't you ask the Grim Reaper yourself?" Through gritted teeth, Carl said, "Nicole, we won't be able to ascertain that man's identity in time. Let's attack." In response, Nicole hesitated and said, "Save our men first." It was then that Carl saw that the commander was going to shoot Jason at any given moment. He had no time to think, so he quickly took aim with his gun at the commander's hand. Just when Jason thought he was about to die, he heard a bang, and the man's hand erupted with blood before his eyes, splattering droplets onto his face. At that moment, he was so stunned that he could not even blink. "Arg!" The man issued a piercing shriek into the night as he fell to the ground. "My hand! Someone is ambushing us!" His men quickly surrounded him as they formed a human shield around him. At the same time, Jason grabbed the pistol from the floor and started shooting at them. With Jason's lead, the people who had faked their surrender began to attack them alongside Carl. Soon after, the Ravens' numbers dwindled, and the commander was momentarily saved. But no matter how much they tried, they could not seem to shoot anyone. "Sir, I think we've fallen into their trap." The commander's subordinate flushed, his body was covered in blood. Seeing his comrade die had almost made the man wet himself. "Imbeciles. You're all idiots. Is this how you spy on your enemies? None of you noticed that there was an ambush?" The commander yelled, the pain in his hand akin to it being crushed into a million pieces. He was furious at his men who had failed to spot the trap. Carl wasted no time. He rushed toward the man and took care of his remaining lackeys while Jason and Yali pinned the three people down. Carl then walked up to the man with his rifle in hand and stomped on his broken hand. That man yelled at the top of his lungs in pain. "Go to hell. Just kill me if you're bold enough." However, all Carl did was look at him coldly as he asked, in a condescending tone of voice, "Are you Kara?" The man froze for a second before a cold smirk crossed his face. "Ha! You thought I was Kara, huh? Could have gotten an Oscar for all the acting, don't you think? Unfortunately, you don't have what it takes to meet him." Carl, who was shocked, instantly felt that something awful was going to happen. D***. This man isn't Kara. Where is Kara? He thought. Suddenly, he heard the loud crack of a pistol discharging behind him. Concurrently, he heard Nicole shouting, "Carl! Watch out!" Carr dodged in the nick of time, the bullet missing him by a hair's breadth, and whizzed right past him. Ugh! The bullet landed right on the neck of the man whom Carl was stepping on, his blood spurting all over the place. Carr was flabbergasted by the sight of it. What's happening? Unfortunately, it was then that he realized that he had fallen right into his opponent's trap. Still, Carl was not expecting the person he was dealing with to kill one of their own. 3 gunshots then echoed across the post, and upon hearing them, Carl yelled, "Return fire." Jason and Yali immediately found cover with their men and began retaliating with volleys of their own. However, their enemies were on high ground, and their disadvantage quickly became apparent in the battle. Jason gritted his teeth. "Nicole, we can't hold on for much longer." What's Nicole waiting for? We're trapped, he thought. Nicole held her sniper rifle tightly in the dark. The man behind all of this is going to show himself soon. I can't expose myself now. After 3 minutes, Carl surmised that he could no longer defend against his enemy's heavy fire anymore. He retreated to the wall of the command post and hid himself. Few of his men were left critically injured, but Yali and his unit risked their lives to drag their injured comrades to a safe spot. The gunshots then stopped. Nicole forced herself to calm down as she looked at her bleeding comrades. Suddenly, the speakers crackled and a peal of creepy laughter blared out of them. Heh heh, Zane's men are really something else. Still, isn't it a little ridiculous for you to think that you could capture me like this? The voice asked in a mocking tone of voice, echoing across the command post. Nicole's face darkened at an instant. This man is a cunning one. He's more than prepared for this. After she had calmed herself down, She switched her watch on and a holographic depiction of entire internal structure of the command post appeared before her. He's got to be somewhere in here if he's using the speakers. Nicole flashed an evil smile and yelled, "I found him." Carl then brought Jason, Yali, and the rest of the unit in as they hunkered down behind covers. The wound on Carl's arm had already started to bleed. Jason was a little confused. "Okay, what is she doing?" Carl shot him a glance and maintained his silence. Although none of them could understand why Nicole had blatantly chosen to do nothing as they were getting injured and cornered, Carl had worked with her for several years, and thus, he knew that she had something up her sleeve. Hence, the only thing he needed to do was to trust her and await her orders quietly, whereupon they would likely storm into the building and take the fight within alongside Nicole. Carl then gave it a little thought and laughed aloud. "Ha! Ha! It pains me to think that someone as infamous as you are would actually be scrambling about, hiding like a sewer rat in broad daylight. See? You don't even have the nuts to show yourself. Instead, you got your lackeys to play the stunt double. What the hell are you, if you're not a damn coward?" The speakers fell silent for a moment, after which the eerie voice said, "Meet you, and you alone? You're in over your head, you Terman family punk." Kerry's gaze darkened at once. He was not expecting Kara to have traced his family background. It seemed to him that it would be unwise to underestimate his enemy's capabilities, and while Kara was truly trick for him to deal with, he must force the latter to show himself nonetheless. Only then could Nicole think of a plan. As he thought about it, Carl took a step forward. "Since you already know who I am, why don't I get myself acquainted with the Great Sea before I die, huh? I want to see if this figure alone is comparable to the Terman family." At that moment, everyone was stunned. They did not expect that Carl, one of their top brass working for Zane, was a member of the Terman family. Such was why Carl had such an imposing presence about him, even at such a young age. In the meantime, everyone who had met Carl's gaze began to have more respect for him. Yet after his speech had ended, the speaker remained silent without a response. Time passed in utter silence, and soon, cold sweat began dripping from everyone's forehead. Nicole had now found Kara's possible position, and that was when she got one of her snipers to take aim. However, she could not leave Carl. Even if Kara really appeared, she had to first keep Carl safe. Carl became very nervous when he saw that nobody was showing up, even after a long time. He got enraged at an instant, and walked out of the shadows to empty the magazine in his handgun skyward. "What's up? You regard the Terman family with such disdain, and yet you fear a man with no bullets left in his gun. What a coward!" Carl yelled out. Nicole could not help but break out in cold sweat for Carl as she thought, "This dude is too reckless. What does he think is going to happen if they have a sniper?" Unexpectedly, after a minute, the floor opposite of Carl opened up into a secret passage. A then stairway appeared before him. "You've got some balls. Come on in then, and I'll let you die as a man of knowledge." Kara's voice emanated from within. Carl, who was shocked for a moment, thought, "This man is really cautious." Meanwhile, Nicole, who had noticed something wrong, yelled, "Don't go in." Although she had already pinpointed the enemy's exact location, she realized that they were holed up in an underground chamber. As of now, she could not find a route into the chamber. Carl heard her, and it was then that he smiled. "Nicole, I believe you will find a way." Nicole was taken aback by his words at once. "Carl, don't be stupid." Carl was just worried they would discover that was not the commanding officer. With this in mind, he discreetly removed the earpiece while wiping the blood of his comrades off his face. Then, he threw his handgun away and strode into the opening to the underground chamber. Nicole's eyes quickly turned red. "Elle can't believe that he has so much trust in me." Nicole did not have much time to think. She knew that she could not hide anymore, and as such, she swiftly turned the holographic projection on and searched for an alternate passage to the secret chamber. Meanwhile, Carl had already made his way into the dark passageway. Jason and Yali attempted to catch up, but just as they had taken 2 steps forward, the Raven sniper hidden in the distance fired 2 warming shots into the ground before their feet, deterring them. Jason and Yali could only watch helplessly as Carl entered the underground chamber. Then, the entrance on the floor closed shut. Damn it. Nicole. What the hell are you doing? You want to see Carl die? Although both cursed through the earpiece, Nicole did not respond. Instead, both of them glanced at each other. Nicole was not usually like this. Could it be that Nicole was already killed? Thinking of this, both of their faces went pale, and they immediately fell into despair. Carl walked down the underground passageway step by step. Then, after coming down the last step, a figure suddenly popped out, striking the back of his head hard. Awful, Carl grunted and fell. The next moment, he felt two people carrying and dragging him forward. The hellish training in the past enabled Carl to keep his consciousness under the effects of a heavy hit. He persevered until the two men brought him into a room. The room's surroundings were an intricate computer facility. It was able to see every place inside and outside the commanding center. Carl immediately understood why he was ambushed before this. It turns out they had prepared early on. This particular point even surpassed what he and Nicole had thought of. Carl's eyes were blurry, but he seemed to be conscious. The man at the head laughed out playfully. Step by step, he walked over, so young and so well trained. It's truly a shame to just die like this. Carl immediately understood, and his predictions were correct. Kara let him come down just to grant him amnesty. The man before him kneeled with glee. One of his hands pinched Carl's chin. Stinking brat. Your mouth is foul, and you hurt many of my men. But if you are willing to follow me and let me use your Terman family's weapons in the future, I can pardon your lowly life. How would it be? Carl finally saw the man's face now. Although it was a man, he seemed to look like a drag queen. His narrow eyes seemed to be oozing sluttiness. Tui, you pansy. Carl cursed out weakly. Kara spat right on his face after he heard Carl call him a pansy. He immediately flew into a rage and raised his hand to punch him. With a bang, Carl immediately saw stars. You really think that just because you're a member of the Terman family, I won't dare to kill you? He hated being called that word the most, as he was called that throughout his life. He was not a pansy at all and only looked like this. Come, men. Mince him for me and feed him to the dogs. Kara was utterly furious. His eyes were filled with bloodlust, and he wanted Carl to be mincemeat. Carl instead laughed. He he he. He he. Blood dripped from the corner of his lips, but the smile was eerie and cold. He seemed not to be the slightest bit afraid. Kara immediately felt the veins on his temple pop. What are you laughing about? Carl did not answer. Kara was instantly in a rage and held onto his hair. He forced Carl to meet his eyes. What are you smiling about? Kerry's gaze grew cold, and he spat a bloody spit at Kara's face. Kara subconsciously blinked, but he heard Carl say a sentence in his ear. I smiled because you, nameless pawn, are not worthy of being worked up for. The next moment, Kara heard the two men holding Carl cry out in agony, ah. When Kara instinctively opened his eyes, a handgun unexpectedly pressed his forehead. The cool feeling of the barrel made Kara's eyes immediately widen. Then he immediately saw a stunning face appear in front of him. Kara was stunned. Who are you? How did you come in here? His secret chamber was personally set up with a super encrypted password. Even the best hacker in the world would be unable to crack it. It would be impossible for someone to come in. When Carl came down, he ultimately did not see anyone else come down. Nicole smiled brightly. I was here all along just now. Kara instantly froze and remembered the two people who carried Carl. One of them had a skinnier frame than usual and was actually not one of his men. When did she replace my men? Did I actually let her into the secret room? Only me and my closest subordinates could enter. He thought to himself. In other words, his men were still outside. Only he and the two subordinates were in the underground room. Carl had already wiped the blood from the comber of his lips and stood up. Then, grumbling, he ranted at Nicole. You were too slow at making a move. Did you purposely let me get punched once? Nicole did not even turn around to reply. Who let you take the liberty of facing dangers by yourself? This is a lesson for you to remember in the future. Seeing that the two clashed with each other arrogantly, Kara's expression turned vicious. You are just two prepubescent little bastards, and you want to capture me? You're overreaching yourselves. When he finished speaking, he dodged to the side and escaped from Nicole's gun. However, Nicole had predicted his movements earlier and did not shoot in panic. Instead, she used the butt of the firearm to hammer into his head directly. As a 30-year-old man, it was the first time he was hit on the head. Kara could only feel humiliation and immediately launched an attack on Nicole. Nicole's gaze turned cold, and she swiftly countered his attacks. The man's attacks were ferocious. Compared to the others she had encountered, his skills were odd. Yet, Nicole stayed unmoving to his barrage. After a few exchanges, her gaze became chillier, and she directly swung to Kara's side and fired a shot at his knees. Whoop! The alarm suddenly rang throughout the basement. Kara laughed smugly. Haha, you truly assumed you could capture me like this. My secret chamber has alarms and traps everywhere. So you are utterly unable to get out. Nicole saw his crazy smug smile but smiled even more brightly. Are those the alarms? Kara quickly felt something was wrong and turned around instinctively and saw the computer screens. Unexpectedly, the screens had all unknowingly turned static. My trap systems are crashing? He thought. The trap designs he took pride in had all turned to harmless bubbles before Nicole, and nothing was left of them. This feeling of humiliation was never felt before by him since his birth. Kara, at that moment, had all his sanity consumed. I'm going to kill you. Although this girl seemed not older than 20, she was too detestable. Nicole noticed something wrong but did not expect Kara to raise his head. The retina scanner above the secret room immediately scanned his retina. She missed that spot and did not expect other devices to be available. A loud boom sounded. Nicole and Carl heard the sound of a massive explosion. Then they saw the situation outside from the surveillance devices, starting from the outer ring. This commanding center actually has bombs. Carl was immediately stunned and did not expect this person to be so insane. Never mind him killing his subordinates. When he went crazy, he wanted to bury the whole commanding center. All of you will die here. After saying this, Kara chose a direction and ran off instantly. It was apparent he still had a contingency. You want to run? Impossible. Nicole's gaze was cold and shot his other leg. Ah! Kara cried. The next moment, he fell before the secret door only he could open. Kara thought to himself, this girl is truly ruthless. Yet, before he could react, Nicole had already stepped onto the knees, injured from the shot. She said, You have sinned so much. How could I possibly let you run away? You want us to die. Then let us die together. Then Nicole gave Kara an evil smile. Seeing the demonic expression in Nicole's eyes, his whole body shivered from the chill. Her expression was more terrifying than when he went insane. However, you have done so many terrible things. Letting you die like this is so easy. I still have many bullets here. I'll just use it all on your body. Her words fell. She shot again at his shoulder blade. Ah! You're crazy. Kara cried out. This woman would let me suffer even in death? Devil. She is actually the devil. He thought. Before he could think anymore, with a loud bang, Kara's other shoulder blade also was broken from the shot. Boom, boom. From their ears, the sound of the explosions came repeatedly. Carl was already panicking and saw Jason bringing the squad to retreat. He instead was growing more and more despairing. Oh mother, I really don't want to die today. Carl thought. He wanted to ask Nicole for help, but she seemed nuts. She furiously and continuously fired at him as if she genuinely did not fear death. Bang! Another shot was fired. She fired the shot that scraped his entrails. Then, Kara's whole body felt immense pain. The blood quickly spurted from his chest, and his mouth and nose were all bloody. This feeling made Kara immediately fall into terror. After so many years and near-death experiences, none of those types of pain or near-death state made him as terrified as he was this time. Hurts. Every breath he took was painful. Painful, right? Nicole saw him groaning, but her expression was a vicious smile. I forgot to tell you, I studied medicine. I can scrape your esophagus and hit your lungs. Make every breath you take feel agonizing but unable to die. After a moment, I'll give you another booster shot. You'll get to feel it while lying there by yourself. One by one, you will be crushed by stones. Your limbs will transmit unbelievable pain but still stay conscious. You will die off with all this pain. Hearing Nicole's description, Carl felt his scalp tingle from it. Nicole seems to have genuinely gone crazy. Oh God. I want to bring her out of here and escape so badly, but it is impossible to get out. Carl thought. For the first time in his life, Carl felt his legs turn to jelly and wanted to drag Nicole and run. Yet, at this moment, Kara seemed to have broken down. No. He began to cough violently. He used all his might to beg for mercy, but the blood from his chest flowed up to his mouth, which terrified him even more. Yet, Nicole quickly pulled Kara and threw him by the door. With the injuries on his body, this fall made Kara cry in pain. Ah! You! What are you doing? It was so painful to him. Nicole looked at Kara and smirked for a moment. You only begged me to save you just now, but I didn't promise anything. What? Kara was immediately dumbstruck. He did not expect that this stinking wench would go back on her word. By his ear, the waves of explosions were continuing. Nicole coldly stood by the steps and looked at him patronizingly as if she was looking at a pile of trash. Then, she said, You hurt so many of our people. You think I would let you live? Kara saw her expression and suddenly discovered that this woman was the devil. He thought that telling her the exit just now would be a chance at surviving. No. I beg you to save me. I don't want to die. Kara tried to crawl toward Nicole. However, Nicole looked at him like a squirming worm and only left a cold sentence. My final grace would be not giving you the booster shot. But people like you deserve to die. After saying those words, she directly twisted the valve outside. Kara watched blatantly as the door closed. His eyes were immediately filled with blood, and he looked at her in fear while screaming, No. He coughed again. A mouthful of blood spurted out again, but Nicole's gaze still did not falter. Until the door closed, Kara despairingly laid his head on the shut wall and knew he could not even stand up without them. He was done for. Nicole turned around and saw Carl looking at her, shocked. She gave a cold smile. What's wrong? You scared of me? Carl was stunned. Although it was for a moment, he indeed had such thoughts. But what she said was true. This type of person is a catastrophe if left alive. Thinking of this, he swiftly held out his hand to pull at Nicole. Nothing to be afraid of. I'll bring you out. Feeling Carl's powerful arms dragging her, Nicole felt relieved. Then, she and Carl quickly escaped the underground tunnel. Although there was no one to lead the way, Nicole's structural map on her watch could accurately point them to exit to these tunnels. Otherwise, she would not have found the entrance to the secret chamber without the structural map. Kaboom! The sounds of the explosions were getting closer. The tunnel behind them was starting to collapse. A wave of dust flew by, but Nicole and Carl did not stop for a moment. There is a light. Seeing the entrance come closer, Carl saw a sliver of hope. However, behind her, Nicole felt the crumbling moving swiftly toward them. They were about a step away from the entrance, so they rushed out. Suddenly, a rock dropped from above the entrance. Nicole did not have time to think much, then swiftly extended her hand and pushed Carl out with a massive heave. With a large booming sound, Carl could not react. The powerful shockwave hurled his whole body. Besides the collapse, there were explosives by the entrance. Carl suddenly sat up in shock and noticed something was not right. Nicole. He instinctively turned around. But at that moment, the entrance had collapsed. The doorway was filled with shattered stones. Damn it! Carl growled in anger and rushed in Nicole's direction. He could barely make out Nicole's hand from the crevices. However, he could not reach it and did not even know if Nicole was still alive. We're screwed. Is there anyone here? Help! There was only darkness, and the surrounding was pitch black. Nicole seemed to not be able to find her way. From afar, she heard Carl's voice. However, She could not distinguish its direction and felt it was too noisy. Carl. Where is he? Is he safe? She thought to herself. She was fatigued and wanted to sleep for a while. Yet, she could vaguely hear Carl's self-reproaching voice and could not stop making a noise. She could not help it and finally said with furrowed brows, "So noisy." While Carl and Jason were blaming and resenting themselves, they suddenly heard Nicole's restless voice and were immediately stunned. They swiftly stood up. "Nicole? You're awake." Carl came to the bedside surprised. Seeing Nicole actually open her eyes, his whole body was in relief. Nicole saw the ceiling and then looked at Carl, Yoli and Jason, who were also in the house. She tried to get up. Carl quickly walked to the bed to crank it up, which made Nicole much more comfortable. She glanced at him, grumbling, "Why were you making so much noise?" Jason saw that Nicole had gained consciousness and sighed. "Although the brave robots came in time and saved you, you almost could not be saved because you stopped breathing for too long." Carl was remorseful about it. They feared Carl would have committed self-disembowelment if Nicole had not woken up soon. Nicole could not help but roll her eyes at Carl. The training had all gone to waste. "It's normal that our squad mates have incidents. Stop being so childish. Men are actually just grown children." Carl was older than her by 2 years. When he was in trouble, she would always suppress her genuine emotions. In contrast, Carl acted embarrassingly whenever he was in front of Jason and the lot. If Zane knew, he would definitely said Carl was a disgrace. Carl, instead, did not care. He twitched his lips into a smile and looked at her, and said, "I don't care about that. I only care about you." At that moment, Carl's gaze was slightly searing when looking at Nicole. The previously suppressed feelings could not help hide the concern and care for her. Jason and Yoli noticed the odd mood and said, "Carl, since Lucifer is fine, you should take care of her. I will take care of the mess at the base." "All right," Carl nodded his head. Nicole thought about it and said, "After the base has been settled, we need to build an outpost at Kara's commanding center. Make sure incidents of the supply line being blocked by the enemy never happen again." This time, she was present. So she solved the incident with Carl's cooperation. However, she and Carl could only sometimes be here. Jason gave her a meaningful glance. When doing the mission, he doubted her abilities until Carl told her about the incident. Only then did he know the lady's skills and resolute decision-making ability. It was incomparable to theirs. He could not help but treat her with more respect now and replied, "I know." Nicole nodded her head and watched both of them leave. Carl had helped her pour a glass of water and asked, "You must be thirsty, right?" Nicole saw Carl's concerned look and felt awkward. "Your sudden well-behaved manner is making me uncomfortable." Carl smiled in resignation. "I was the one who was almost dragging your feet. If you got into an incident, Zane would kill me." Nicole knew Carl was joking, and his concern was serious. Following this, she answered thoughtfully, "Has the scene been managed properly? What about Kara's body?" Kara's gaze reverted to its gloomy state, settled, and he is already dead.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.